Today we're going to get to see somebody who should have just got off the roof of that car. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host as always, John Correa.
I'm your co-host Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Carroll, Iowa.
MagTech is the only pistol or rifle ammo I use on the range, and I recommend them highly. I've seen their manufacturing and quality control firsthand, and it's incredible, which is why it always performs reliably and accurately. They are operating at max capacity and cranking out rounds for you to keep your skills sharp. Pick up some MagTech at your local ammo retailer or get it shipped fast at luckygunner.com.
Officer McCarty has pulled this woman over for a traffic infraction. He runs the people inside and recognizes that what we have here is we have somebody who has a warrant. So he is going to go and address that warrant. We have some badge cam audio from here. Let's listen in and hear how it goes.
How's it going, guys? Hey, Dennis. Hey, hate to be the one to tell you this, but it sounds like you got a warrant out of Illinois. Okay. You got your ID on you? Sorry? Okay. Do you have anything on you? Why don't you step out of the car until we can identify you? You got anything on your person, man? You got anything on you? Any weapons or anything like that? What's up? Awesome. Okay, go ahead and step out. Hello? Go ahead and step out, man. Yeah, reach. Unbuckle your seatbelt and step out of the vehicle. Yeah, what's up? Stop the car, man! Stop the car! 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 Stop it! Stop the car! Stop the car! Get off the put on the brakes! Put on the brakes! Put on the brakes! Stop the car! Stop the car, man! Jesus Christ! Stop the car, man!
Officer McCarty broke his back in this incident, getting thrown off of the car. Our miscreant got away for a while, and then they did track his car. They did find him. He was sentenced to some hard time for this one, argued that the officer is who bears equal responsibility with him because he skirt him, and the judge said not so much. Okay, listen, I think there's serious lessons here, but you want to just kind of have a little bit of fun, and when it bounces him off there to get that record scratch, I bet you're wondering how I got here.
Yeah, don't do this. Don't ever do this if you're a police officer, please.
Please. Let me say at the outset of analysis on this that our absconder here, our dude who jumps in the driver's seat and drives off, bears significant responsibility here. If he had simply said, oh man, I gotta go deal with this warrant, I knew I had it out for me because I didn't show up in court or whatever, none of this happens without him being completely irresponsible with what he did, okay? So I think he bears significant responsibility. That is up front. Don't do this, friends. If you are, you got a warrant or whatever, it's not the responding officer's fault. Go deal with your trash, okay? And also here, Mike, I do think in the beginning that Officer McCarty did a pretty good job. I think he was pretty professional. Hey man, we got to deal with this warrant, but he wasn't a jerk. I think he was very kind and professional to him.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, goes towards this officer's professionalism, and he tried to be courteous. I think a lot of cops today are aware of the fact that young black men are afraid of them. They have reason to be afraid of them for any number of things. Some real, some maybe perceived. I'm not going to be the judge of that, but it's important that you treat everyone with courtesy and respect. And I think this officer did exactly that up until things went sideways. I do want to point out that he said to the young man, "Hey, unfortunately, you have a warrant, need you to get out of the car." We had a recent video where the officer wanted the guy out of the car. She goes, "Yeah, I smell weed. I want you out of the car." Listen, you don't have to give a reason to get someone out of the car. And I recommend that you don't give them a reason. This is not the time or the place. And now that you've said, okay, you're definitely going to jail and they're not out of the car yet, now they have the option to maybe not get out of the car, maybe to flee. So I say, whatever PC you have, that's fine. You're not obligated to share it with the suspect in the moment. You just get him out of the car first, and then we can talk about why. Get him out of the car, get him secured, and then we can talk about why.
I really think, man, again, if we can get out of the car first, then we've got a little bit better spot. Now, he's going to kick his girlfriend out of the car here and then get in the driver's seat, and now is where everything starts to go south. I can't say it enough. Do not put yourself in front of a car like this. Officers, hear me. I can't say this any more clearly. Do not put yourself at mortal risk like this, because he draws a gun. Okay, fine. We'll talk about that again in a second. But when you put yourself in front of the car like this, you create danger for yourself. You create problems for yourself. And I'm sure if Officer McCarty could go back in time, he would change this where he doesn't end up on the hood. And the best way not to end up on the hood is don't put yourself in a spot where you just think that, oh, he won't run me over. Well, that's all well and good until he does.
Look, there's a time and place for almost everything, and that time is college. But in this event, I feel like you put yourself in front of the car, and you, like John said, you are creating that danger. Now, there could be an exception to that. It could be that there's a juvenile, hostage in the back or something, or there's some reason that if he gets away from here, that he's going, we have good information that he's going to kill somebody or injure somebody. That's fine. But other than that, putting yourself in front of the car is never a good idea. We talked about this in another video where the officer ended up shooting someone who slowly crept towards him in their car. Similar situation. If you don't have if you don't have a good reason to display and show deadly force, don't bring it up, because it looks to me like he's hoping that the display of the firearm will gain compliance from this individual. In that, look, it's either going to work or it's not, right? I mean, it works sometimes. When it doesn't work, then what's your next step? Now you're standing in front of a car with your gun out. I mean, what are we doing? Are we daring him to move forward so that we can shoot? None of this is great.
No, none of this is great. I think his grip on the firearm's not good. That's a problematic thing. I will say from the offender's perspective that he kicked his girlfriend out. And so, hey, just a tiny bit of hat tip for a little bit of chivalry. Nothing else you did was worth a crap. And may you enjoy the top ramen and the sticky buns in prison for the next several years. But at least you let your girlfriend out and didn't put her at risk. Good for you on that. And again, man, what a disaster here. So he's like, hey, don't do it, don't do it. And then the guy does. He could have just gotten off there and instead chooses to get up on the hood of the car. That was a choice. He literally had the option here because the guy was moving towards him to simply step off to the side, go get back into his cruiser. And instead, he voluntarily chooses to put himself in this situation. Now, I just can't say enough. This is like a bad episode of the Dukes of Hazzard where you see that like record scratch. You're like, I bet you're wondering how I ended up breaking my back and ended up in the hospital for several months. Well, this is why. And you put yourself in this spot and things are just gonna get worse for you, right? So it's okay when you've made a bad decision to recognize, wait, what do I need to be doing right now? And the first thing I need to do is fix this bad decision and roll off this car before he starts driving it more quickly.
Yeah, to reiterate what John said at the top, John and I talk extensively about these videos before we record. And one of the things we said was, look, if you're in a spot, you're like, I shouldn't have done what I just did. If you can fix it quickly. If he'd have been able to get off this car now, this whole thing would have gone probably very differently. And understand that if you find yourself in a spot where you've backed yourself into a corner, if you find an egress, you find an escape route, take it. Because nothing good's going to happen. John said at the top, these events are the fault of the suspect, and I agree, that's true. But there's things that we can do as officers to avoid being in a position like this, because this is a terrible position to be in. Get off. If you find yourself in the spot and you're not going 100 miles an hour, get the heck off of that car. I don't care if the bad guy gets away. It's going to be a worse day if you stay on it.
And literally, there's nothing worse than, I guess he could have died. But again, when you put yourself into a spot then that sets things into motion where you may not end up doing well on this. And I know we see this all the time from the opposite side, that cops end up shooting somebody that maybe they shouldn't have shot or whatever, but officers, hear me. Here's even worse situation here that you end up, oh no, what am I gonna do? I end up with a broken vertebra over this and years of physical therapy ahead of me because I couldn't back away from a bad decision, okay? And again, I just really think Officer McCarty did a fine job early on. But then now at this point, what are you gonna do? You just gotta kind of hold on for the ride, and it's like riding the bull, right? You don't get to decide where you're going at this point. The bull gets to decide where you're going. And of course, we want every officer to, have a long, successful career, to be able to, get to their retirement and enjoy that pension without problems like this, okay? And listen, at some point, you're gonna cast the dice, because look at what happens here. You can see that he bucks through this ditch, and that throws the officer off where he literally breaks his back, could easily have died here. And so my big thing, you put yourself in a bad spot. The second you recognize it's a bad spot, change. It's okay to go, wait a minute, this is bad. You don't have to double down. You're not pot committed. Get out of there. Even if when the car's running, rolling 15, 20, 30 miles an hour. Hey man, I got to roll off this car because chances are good I'm going to have some road rash, which I think is real preferable to a broken back.
Yeah, this is a dilemma you have when you're in a position like that is, now we're going 50 or 60, or he was going a good clip. We don't know how fast he was going, but fast enough. If you could have gotten off that car sooner, this doesn't happen. And while you're going a reasonable speed, pick your spot and try to roll off of that thing, because doing it involuntarily is almost always going to end poorly. Doing it involuntarily means that the person's probably going at a good rate of speed and making a sharp maneuver like he did in this case, and he goes flying off. This is the poster. This is a freeze grab for this is why we don't get in front of cars, period. End of discussion. Unless there is some really overriding issue like a hostage or something else, or a clear and imminent threat to the public if the person gets away even temporarily, because this is just terrible. I can't imagine being in this position, or being in the position of the responding officers driving alongside or watching this happen in real time, and not having an answer for this question. What do I do if I'm next to him in my patrol car? I don't want to ram that car or push it off the road. If my guy could fall in between the cars and end up getting killed, it's a bad day all the way around. This is the reason why we don't get in front of cars. This, or just flat out getting run over because the bad guy's not scared of you or your gun.
Listen, you can't expect him to be scared of you. You can't expect him to be scared of the gun. And in this case, our perp was like, oh, the officer bears some responsibility here too, because I was scared. He pulled a gun on me. Well, listen, buddy, he pulled a gun on you because you were resisting arrest in a vehicle. And that's a pretty significant thing. You got warrants. He's got to deal with that stuff, okay? So I don't buy that kind of answer back from our perp. At the same time, listen, I'm not blaming Officer McCarty for what happened to him here. I'm trying to make sure that we all understand, officers for sure, that you don't want to put yourself in this kind of position, because whether or not he was correct in getting on the hood, and I get it, you don't want bad guys to get away. Your mission as a law enforcement officer is to put bad people, and get them behind bars and take them out of society. But to do that, you don't want to put yourself in a spot where you end up with a broken back, where you end up wondering, am I going to be able to play with my kids for the rest of my life, and those kinds of things. So make sure that we take good risk mitigation techniques to better cover our ass.